Let's continue our exploration of the ghosts of the past and work on those Bridgerton palettes. Today I'm going to just start doing my makeup so that we don't have to waste any time. I keep forgetting that the Bridgerton I palette is technically still a palette from this year, and I unfairly hadn't included it in my count for the amount of palettes that I have purchased this year, because even though technically, strictly technically, I didn't purchase it this year, I purchased it one of the last days of December or whenever it was that this collection dropped on the Pat McGrath website. I want to say it was the 26th of December. I could be wrong, I'm not sure. I'm almost entirely certain though that I didn't really have this palette before either the last days of the year or the beginning of January. So I can make myself believe all sorts of fairy tales, but the matter of fact is this palette still counts as a palette that I have obtained this past year. So I'm going to do sort of like a mashup of the two Bridgerton palettes. I don't want to, talk about them right now individually or use them individually, because I have a little look in mind that I will try to, conjure up today. So these two releases followed each other pretty closely, in the sense that season 1 of Bridgerton was already released a while back. I caught up on the whole Bridgerton craze pretty late in the game. I only watched the first season of the show beginning of the year, and the collection dropped, as I said, in the end of the year. So by that time I had pretty much forgotten a little bit what, the specific characters were, what they were called, and, all of that jazz. So at first I was actually pretty surprised that Pat McGrath is collaborating with Bridgerton, but apparently she's a huge fan of the show, and we've already, talked about the fact that Pat has a very specific taste when it comes to her fandom. She just really likes what she likes, and that's who she likes to collaborate with. I think I'm about to pan this concealer very soon, actually. This is the, I will never ever remember the name of this brand off the top of my head. First Aid Beauty Bendy Avocado Concealer. Irrelevant because it's been discontinued anyway. Didn't see those palettes dropping, wasn't particularly excited because while I enjoyed Bridgerton, I'm not like a super huge fan of the show or something. Because of that, I also don't have particularly strong feelings about the inspiration that she has taken from the characters in the creation of these collections. I do feel like they're, pretty closely inspired by the show, but at the same time, my biggest criticism of them is that they're so flipping repetitive. Like, 3 out of the 6 shades in each of these palettes is so similar to each other that it could be considered dupes of each other. So, oh, you know what? Let's bust out this guy. This is the Chanel La Beige Touch Water, Chanel Water something complexion touch thing. So let's give that one a try. It has sort of like sunken into the deep depths of my drawer, and I have forgotten to use it. So I'm going to try to use it today and see how I feel about it, because I remember quite liking this and it's looking really natural. So I think we can all agree these Bridgerton palettes are incredibly redundant, and that is an absolutely, fair, it's not one of those arguments where you can really attribute, to personal taste, because, people are not fans of the show, or they're not fans of Pat McGrath's formula, or they don't like luxury makeup. No, it's not one of those things where she can get away with something like this. You look at these palettes and you're like, half of these palettes are identical. What the fuck? I'm going to bust out something that basically just stands here on my vanity, and I 99.9% of the time forget that I own it. And this is the Guerlain Meteorites, like limited edition packaging that I bought with a big discount on Feel Unique, I want to say, some years ago. So let's just try that as a finishing powder today. I'm not going to be wearing my makeup for a really long time, so I'm not too worried about it. Whoa! Balls all over the floor, sorry. So I'm not too worried for the longevity of my foundation with these meteorites, because I haven't really tested them quite a lot, since I haven't really worn them that much. I kind of bought them, I thought they looked really pretty on my vanity, and then I just forget to use them. So I'm going to try to make it a point to use these up. I'm going to take the diffused bronze light from Hourglass in order to bronze up. And what is really unfortunate about these almost identical parts of the two palettes is that they are in tones and eyeshadow colors that I personally do not like to wear. They are like plummy, reddy, purpley, berry kind of colors. Really pretty, if you are, you know, specific skin tone and you have a specific eye color, but I don't have either of those. So on me, these sort of shades tend to make me look a little bit bloodshot and as if I'm having a hangover, or, you know, I haven't slept for 10 days. So I'm not particularly fond of these tones, which is why I have been so frustrated with her always putting these mattes in her Mothership palettes, and now also twice in the fucking Bridgerton palettes. Now, since we're doing Bridgerton, I feel like it makes sense to pull out the little wheel here with the baked blushes. The baked blushes are truly really nice, and I'm going to actually go for a shade that I don't usually wear so much, which is this pink one here. It is a very nice fresh pink, sort of on the warmer side. Oh, why am I using it with this brush? That's the wrong brush. Now that I've grabbed the right brush, let me apply the blush. But I think it's going to fit very nicely with the look, and it also gives me the chance to use this shade because I'll be honest with you, I usually just go for the peach. Sometimes I'll go for the berry because, especially like in the fall, I think that berry looks really nice. The formula on these is truly stunning. They're just really flawless on the skin. I really love them. I hope that she's going to come out with more products that feature this formula, but in a packaging that less people are going to despise with a passion. I cannot say that I hate the packaging of this Bridgerton wheel thing, because I use it the way I think it was intended to be used, which is I displayed here on my vanity as a piece of, you know, makeup that would belong on the vanity of a woman from the Regency era. I think that was the intention behind this packaging. I understand why people hate it, but I also think they need to understand what the inspiration behind the show was and this product. So with that said, I don't really hate this packaging. I'm okay with it, and I can honestly say that I enjoy looking at it on my vanity. There you go. I don't like the highlighter in that wheel, so I'm not going to use that highlighter, also because it is like goldy yellowy. It's not going to fit the look that we're going for, so I am going to be pulling out for one of my single highlighters from Pat. I'm going to take Golden Nectar because I don't think you've seen me use Golden Nectar in a while, and it is one of my favorite highlighters from Pat. So the only redeeming factor, the only redeeming quality of these eyeshadow palettes obviously is the fact that they contain her Astral baked formulas. It was also the last time this year that we saw the baked formula featured in a palette from Pat. Alright, I feel a bit discombobulated today. I've just spritzed my sponge here with Fix Plus because I had a day off, and I feel like my thoughts are even less organized than they usually are, which is why it's great that this video is just revisiting the palettes and not really ranking them or having to like have cohesive thoughts, because I don't have any of that today to offer you. Sorry. Oh, I think I forgot to tell you that I made my purchase from the Star Wars collection like just half an hour ago, because it released half an hour ago. Okay, I'm going to zoom you in and we're going to start on the eye look. I'm trying to find an angle here in which you can enjoy both the makeup and Mona, because she's sleeping in the background on a little blanket that I laid out for her. Blankets are basically cat traps. You just lay a blanket and you catch a cat. That's just inevitable. Okay, going into the Bridgerton I palette. In fact, I think for most of this look we're going to be into the Bridgerton I palette. There's only one shade I think that I want to pull out for the Bridgerton II. But speaking of this palette, my absolute favorite look to do with this palette is this shade in the outer corner and crease, this one on the lids, and this one as a topper. This shade truly is phenomenal. It is so smooth, it is so beautiful, it is so creamy, it looks gorgeous on the lids. It is a unique shade of like purpley, taupey, you know, mauve-y kind of purple. Really lovely. Very similar to Eleganza from the Divine Rose 2 palette. If you have that, you don't have to lust after this shade because they're very similar. But I usually will go into this palette to do this one look. I think I did a look in the very beginning when I bought this palette and I filmed, just because I wanted to show you. I did looks featuring these two shades, but after that I don't think I've ever gone into these shades. This one is, you know, the inner corner highlight. There's nothing really interesting to talk about there, but yeah, I basically get one look from this palette. It is an expensive palette to get one look from. I agree with you. Actually, you know what? I do want to do something different. I hope you're not going to be too mad. You can pull out your bronzer if you want. But I am actually going to take this little signature quad here that I have from Victoria Beckham, because I want to take something like truly quite neutral through the crease, and I want to put the purple shade from this palette only really in my outer corners. I still want to maintain the crease relatively simple. I think if I had to like favor one of the Bridgerton II palettes over the other, I would probably have to say that I prefer the Bridgerton II palette, because there are more shades in there that I truly like love and tremendously enjoy. You will see in a little bit when I show you which shade we're going to use from there, that there is like a mint green metallic shade that I have a little dent in because I've been using it so much. If you do have mothership palettes from McGrath, even the Bridgerton II is going to be a little bit redundant, because one of the most stunning shades in there is the Gigabyte 2.0. I don't actually know the name of that shadow, I just call it the Gigabyte 2.0 because it's essentially Gigabyte from the Subversive palette, but then slightly amped up. They're extremely similar to each other, and because I adore Gigabyte from Subversive, I didn't really mind having two of them. And where the Bridgerton II palette also beats the other palette is that there are two baked shades in it, because there is also a really sparkly Astral that we're going to use today, while the first one only has that one baked Astral shade. I'm going to now take the deep plum shade here from the Bridgerton I palette, and I actually like the plum in the Bridgerton I more than I like the plum in the Bridgerton II palette, because the one that we're going to use now, so this one here, is a little bit more like gray purple, whereas this one is more of like that warmer aubergine type purple. And I think first of all that aubergine type purple is less unique, and second of all, somehow on me it just looks less flattering. I told you, there is something about those maroony shades that just do not flatter me at all, and I actually don't like that shade in the Bridgerton II palette at all. I think I've used it like very few times. But I do like the pink coral shade in the Bridgerton II palette, the one that comes in the baked formula. Because what's interesting, I forgot to mention, is that these palettes also feature a satin matte formula that we haven't really seen in her motherships. So for example, these two shades here, they're both baked into the pan, and they are beautiful formula. And the one that is very similar and is featured in this palette as well is this one here. Has a very beautiful like warm coral tone to it, and it's not as much of like a straight up like baby pink like the blush was, and I prefer that on my eyes a little bit better. So there are certain shades that I prefer in the Bridgerton I, certain that I prefer in the Bridgerton II. So between the two of them, if I could franken a palette of my own, I would probably be the happiest. But you will never see the day that I depot Pat McGrath eyeshadows. I am just really not one of those people that feels comfortable destroying beautiful packaging. I will never be able to do that with any of my Pat McGrath palettes, FYI. They just will lose about half of their magic if I would depot them. So this purple shade I truly really enjoy. It is a beautiful tone and really nice texture. Like, the quality of these eyeshadows is undeniable. It's just that repetition of tones that is so extremely frustrating to me and everyone else who loves Pat McGrath. I'm going to take my little shader brush and going into this Eleganza 2.0 shade, which is another one of my absolute favorites. I really like this shade, it is so beautiful. You could apply it over a glitter glue, and that's what I would usually do, but today I'm feeling a little bit lazy. And I had started talking about the Star Wars release, I didn't like finish my story. Discombobulated, I'm telling you. So I purchased the two palettes that I talked about, the two quins, the Sith Seduction and something with a droid, the R2-D2 one, and I was really close I tell you, to purchasing the trio of the three quins, because obviously there was a little bundle of the three eyeshadows, and it was of course a little bit cheaper than getting the three of them individually. But in the end I decided that it's just not worth, even if it's cheaper, to get a quint that is so unbelievably repetitive and boring. So I restrained the itch. I just purchased the 2 individual quints, and I also bought the pot that I talked about, the Falcon Noir, that's like this anthracite gray with the blue sparkles in it. I'm very curious about it. And this shade is just so beautiful. I really like this shade. Now we are going to cover it up with a couple of things though. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Bridgerton II palette, and I think maybe the only eyeshadow I'm going to take, no actually not, I'm going to take this shade to top off that purple that I put on the lid, but like just a few flakes. And I'm also going to use this one as my inner corner highlight today, because the one in the Bridgerton I palette is a little too dark as an inner corner highlight. I prefer this one. So I'm going to take just a few flakes of this shade, like this, because we're going to layer more astral things with each other, just to see how that goes, because I'm curious. And this astral from the Bridgerton II palette is so gorgeous. It is this champagne gold pink, which undeniably is a really, really beautiful astral shade. And because I cannot help myself, we're going to also be taking the astral from the Bridgerton I palette and going to apply that together with the other astral so that we see what happens. Obviously they're going to be clashing in tone with each other a bit, because the astral from the Bridgerton II palette is actually quite warm in tone. But I want to see what happens when we just put all of that together. It just becomes sparkly and complex and dimensional, and it's just what my dreams are made of. And you know, complex, sparkly and dimensional could be my first, middle and last name. So let's put more. I'm going to apply my inner corner highlight now. And I can bet this is again one of those like multi-release contracts that she has with Netflix/Bridgerton, so we are probably going to see a 3rd installment of this collection, maybe even already next year, because if I'm not mistaken, season 3 of Bridgerton is coming already next year. Alright, I'm going to keep it super simple on the lower lash line, and I'm just going to apply this shade and maybe mix it a little bit of this one towards like the inner portion of the lower lashes. Overall, I don't regret owning these 2 palettes, because they still offer unique things in my collection and textures from Pat that I really, really enjoy, and I will continue to enjoy for a very long time ahead. But I think it's okay to express a little bit of frustration with the fact that just between these 2 palettes there is already so much repetition that we cannot overlook, and we have to express our frustration, because obviously she meant for us to have both, so why make them so repetitive? I don't have my phone with me, it is charging, so unfortunately we're not going to have a sparkle moment in this video. We can probably all agree this video was an absolute hot mess. My apologies for that. If you suffered through it and you made it all the way to now, please accept my most sincere apologies. I decided to go for something a little bit more subtle on the lips, because I feel like I've been doing like really like bold lipsticks lately, so I thought maybe it's time to like tone it down. And also I'm going to have snack bar food in a little bit, so lip is going to come off real fast. I think I've told you about snack bar food in the Netherlands, like delicious fry food that you can find on every corner in every neighborhood in this country. Delightful. So I'm going to have fries and a bunch of other fried goods in less than an hour, so I don't think that any lipstick is really going to survive that, nor do I feel like fussing around with that. I'm going to have a little soiree with my friends from work. We're going to have like a little gift exchange on account of Christmas, so I'm just wearing my Lisa Eldridge Affair lip gloss. That is the point I was trying to make this whole time. I hope you were able to get something out of my disjointed thoughts on the Bridgerton palettes. I think I made my feelings on these pretty clear. I was very harsh and very critical, and I tend to be very harsh and very critical on Pat above all other brands for some reason, but that's just because, you know, I know she can do so much more. But I want to say I do love these palettes. I'm very happy that I have them, and I would not ever even consider decluttering them. I'm very curious if you purchased anything from the Star Wars collection. Do let me know in the comments. Do let me know what you thought about this look. As usual, thank you so much for watching. My apologies. We will see each other again next time. when hopefully I'm not going to be this discombobulated. Bye!